In the extreme case that you've been living under a rock, with the latest Tekken 8 character and the new DLC Miyari-Su, the game also had a new battle pass, and in that battle pass there are multiple items that are references to SNK characters, and they are very obvious. For example, we have Shiranui hair in the battle pass, and it's very obviously her hair, like she has a very distinctive and a specific type of hair, and is there, a very classic KOF character. Then we also have this hat, and it kind of looks like Terry's hat, right? Just with a different message. And then we also have these pants that are kind of similar to the ones that Yuri uses, another classic SNK character. And well, because of this, many people are arguing that these are active hints by the developers to say that we are gonna get an SNK guest character announced at the Game Awards for Tekken 8. And the last time that the Game Awards had Tekken on it, we got Clive Rosefield, the first guest character. So in this video, we are gonna discuss my top 5 picks for an SNK guest character in Tekken 8, since it seems like it is actually highly likely. So let's get into it. And for the first pick, in my opinion, it has to be Kyo Kusanagi, the protagonist from the King of Fighters series. The last time that we got an SNK guest character in Tekken, of course, it was Geese Howard, one of the most iconic SNK bosses ever, and I think that taking into account the crossovers that Street Fighter and Fatal Fury had, in which we got Terry and Mai on a Street Fighter and Ken and Chun-Li in Fatal Fury, there is a time in which the protagonist of another franchise needs to have the spotlight, also because the next KOF game is probably not as far away as we think, and Kyo has never been a guest character in any fighting game outside of the Capcom vs SNK crossovers. If we can count that as a guest character appearance, I would personally not. And I actually also think that I don't only want, Kyo on Tekken because he's a really cool character visually and design wise, but also because I feel like he's one of the SNK characters that could fit Tekken the most gameplay wise. Like, you could put Kyo in Tekken and make him like a fully Rekka based character, fully melee, only martial arts, no fireballs and nothing of that, and it would be perfect for the game design wise, like balance wise. And I know that also a lot of people would be really happy to see Kyo Kusanagi in Tekken, both SNK and some Tekken fans, even though I know that a big portion of the Tekken community, at least the one that is maybe more vocal online, doesn't really want any guest characters. But I think that fighting game crossovers can be really hype if you execute them well. Clive Rosefield, for example, was not necessarily the most well executed guest character, and I think that if you do Kyo Kusanagi well, he can easily be one of the most iconic guest characters ever and have a deserved spot in Tekken 8. Then for my number 2 pick, and this is kind of like cheating, but I'm gonna say multiple characters in the same number, is my video after all, and it's going to be any famous Art of Fighting character, because SNK has already teased the Art of Fighting reboot in their YouTube channel. They have talked openly about the fact that they're working on it, and we don't know if it is even a fighting game or it's gonna be like an RPG or a different type of game. But if it's gonna be a fighting game, it would be a good idea to probably promote Art of Fighting as a franchise with a guest character in Tekken 8. It could be, for example, Ryo. It could also be Mr. Karate version of Ryo. It could also be maybe Robert Garcia, and there's even more characters that you could put in there. They are, of course, arguably much less famous than someone like Kyo, for example, from KOF. But if you execute them well, again, they could easily be a really good addition to the game, especially if you take potentially all the fireballs out of their kits and don't have, the typical Akuma problem that Tekken 7 had. And it depends on what, approach the developers want to have. But I think that if you want to kind of promote Art of Fighting as an IP, which is probably something that SNK wants to do, there is a big chance that if we get an SNK guest character in Tekken, it's actually going to be a character from the AOF franchise. Hey, just in the case that you've been enjoying this content until now, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to support the channel. I cover a ton of different fighting games, so if that's something that you like, you're probably gonna enjoy your time here. And also let me know in the comments which SNK character you would like to see as a guest in Tekken. I was kind of like short on time when I was making this video, so I had to make a short list, but I'm already thinking of a couple of characters that I think a lot of people would like to see in the game that I have not mentioned in the video. So let's keep the discussion. Then we have the number 3 pick, and this is kind of like a little bit more controversial, I would say, because it's a character that one could say can be relatively close and similar to Akuma, and it would be Iori Yagami, also from KOF. Iori is one of the most classic and iconic character designs from SNK as, you know, a company and all of their IPs in which Iori has appeared, and he's one of the public faces of SNK. Like, Iori is one of the most famous SNK characters ever, and he's insanely cool. Like, you cannot say to me that this guy is not cool. But the thing is, in a lot of games, Iori uses fireballs, and that was one of the biggest problems with Akuma in Tekken 7, so I don't know how you could potentially, you know, execute Iori. I know that there are versions of Iori Yagami in multiple SNK fighting games in which he doesn't use any fireballs, he uses claws. He does like a fully melee style combat, and we could do that, but at the same time, one of the things that, you know, kind of like makes Iori unique as a character is the usage of the purple, you know, fireballs or whatever you want to call them. So I would like to see Iori in the game, even if it ends up being a controversial character, because I'm a sucker for fighting game guest characters, but it's probably something harder to pull off than something like Kyo or an Art of Fighting character, depending on how you do it. But Iori could for sure take the spotlight and be a really cool guest character in Tekken 8 if they do it well. Then we jump to the number 4 pick, and this one is arguably one of the most likely ones because Harada, that has publicly stated that he's leaving Bandai Namco, he has talked before of the fact that he would like to see Rugal Bernstein on Tekken. And Rugal is another, you know, like iconic villain from SNK, one of the most famous ones, but it could also be a really tricky character to design balance-wise. He could take up the game by storm. Like, Rugal is a character that by design is insanely strong. He can technically do whatever he wants in many ways, depending on the game that you're playing with him or playing against him as a boss. So it would be really hard to pull the character off and not make everyone super mad about it. But Rugal is iconic, incredibly cool character, and we could see him in the game, even if the community gets pissed off, you know, the classic, maybe like more OG Tekken community. But I think that he could also deserve a spot in Tekken if they're gonna put an SNK guest character on it, and Harada has talked about it openly. And now that we know that Harada is actually leaving Bandai Namco, of course, all the respects to him and his legendary legacy work on Tekken, I wouldn't be surprised if as a last, you know, like big thing for him, it would be to put Rugal in the game, since he has said that he likes it. It would be pretty hilarious and super badass, to be honest, to just put a controversial Tekken guest character on it and just leave the company. It would be pretty hilarious. So let's see if Rugal maybe makes it. It would probably be a very iconic crossover, but hard to balance for sure. And then for the last pick in this video, to me it has to go to Rock Howard. Even though we already got, you know, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, the game is already out, there is no really reason to maybe put a guest character unless you really want to push the game to maybe get more sales, which is still gonna be really hard. I don't think that anyone that plays Tekken 8 for playing Rock Howard, if he gets into the game, is going to buy Fatal Fury. So I don't know if it is the best marketing move, but Rock is one of the most famous and also liked, you know, SNK characters out there. And the thing is, he's also probably like Akuma, you know, he's the classic 2D Shoto character. A lot of characters have similar tools in those type of fighting games, and it will be hard to pull the character off without pissing people off again. But it's hard to do anything without pissing the Tekken community off, so I'm not that sure about what you could even do. So in that sense, Rock Howard could also for sure deserve a spot as a guest character. And then lastly, as a kind of bonus character, the last thing that comes to my mind is to actually put Kim Kaphwan on Tekken. And even though Kim Kaphwan could be maybe like similar to Hwoarang, not exactly the same, he does make sense in the terms of the pure gameplay like perspective of it, and he's somewhat related to also Art of Fighting as a series. But in that sense, I don't know what they could pull off if they want to promote Art of Fighting specifically with Kim, instead of putting like an actual Art of Fighting protagonist like Ryo or Robert, for example. It's kind of hard to see what direction they could take. So those are kind of like my picks for the potential, you know, SNK guest characters. I like a lot of these characters, just all of them really, and I would be happy with any of them as a guest in Tekken. Hopefully they just, you know, execute it right if that's what they're gonna do, because it could be insanely hype, one of the best, you know, fighting crossovers ever. And let's see what happens at the Game Awards. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to support the channel. Let me know in the comments what you want to see from an SNK guest character in Tekken, and see you on the next one.